Okay, 225ers, so this video tutorial in particular is looking at the use of custom components inside of Revit. So let's just dive into creating a student project that I know about. Rich, this one is for you, buddy. So we're going to start with the component tools, and we're going to go model in place. And again, to start off with, as you're getting comfortable with Revit, let's stick with the generic models, and I'm just going to call this Rich 1. So the first thing that I'm going to do is drop a reference plane, because I'm going to start by actually working off of the foundation on Rich's project. And I'm going to name that reference plane, so I have it selected, and I'm going to name it Foundation. And you can see that the foundation, as that's clicked, will show up right here. So I'm going to go to my south view, and I'm going to go to Home, Extrusion, and now I'm going to choose the reference plane foundation to begin my sketch. So I'm going to go up 18 inches. I'm going to go over 18 inches. I'm going to create a 45-degree angle slope. Let's go a little less than that. Let's do 35. That seems better. 35. Let's make that 2 feet. I'm going to come down to match that angle. Let's do something like that. And then close this object off and accept it. And in 3D, I'm going to go ahead and pull that out to, let's do 100 feet to start with. So I'm going to go back to the south view again, and let's continue working in that reference plane. This time I'm going to go ahead and make the structural column. Again, I'm going to choose the foundation reference plane. I want to come in about 4 inches from the top. Just need to remember to delete that line later. Let's bring this up 26 feet. And I kind of want to create a tapered look with this. We're going to go about 8 inches here, and then I'm going to close this off at the bottom, and then I'm going to use the trim tool right here to trim that line here, this line here, and we want to make that column about 6 inches wide. And we're just going to say that it's a custom built tube steel type column. And I'm going to go ahead and finish that and look at it in the three-dimensional view. So I have something like that happening. Now what I want is a series of these columns, and then I'm going to build a window, a custom window shape to fit inside of each one, all using the custom components. Before I get too much further though, let's go ahead and change the view style to realistic, and let's look at some materials as well. So with this custom component selected, I'm going to come down to Materials, and I'm going to go ahead and call that a cast-in-place concrete. And I always want my surface patterns to be gray and my cut patterns to be gray. That way they don't conflict with my line work. So I'm going to do that. Get that kind of look right there. And then this steel column is going to be, I don't know, let's figure out a good material for that. We know it's going to be a metal, so I'm really thinking that it's probably sort of a, it has sort of an aluminum look to it probably. That might not be exactly what I want later. I want to check out the steel as well. Yeah, let's stick with sort of a metal aluminum, with the assumption that maybe it's not going to be quite that glossy at the end of the day, but it might have some type of cladding on there that's going to match the aluminum frames for the window. So the next thing I'm going to do is go to my floor plan view, and I want to copy this column over a couple of times. So I'm going to use the copy tool, multiple, and I'm going to push that over. And the first thing you'll notice is it's not going to actually go vertically or to the north direction like I want it to. And that's because I built that off of a reference plane which is represented by this dashed line. So by default, it only wants to move in that reference plane direction. So to fix that, I'm going to turn off constrain. That means the object is no longer attached to my reference plane. I can now move that up 10 feet. And let's do that a few more times. Now, if I was very efficient, I'd be using the array tool. We'll get to the array tool a little bit later. Not in this tutorial, but in a future one. For right now, let's just use copy, multiple. So I'm essentially just pushing that column in the direction that I want it to go to the north and typing in 10 for my dimension. I should have made 10 copies, and then let's stretch this out that extra 6 inches so that the ends line up. I get something like that. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is add in a window, and this is not going to be a very realistic window, but for the purpose of time, I'm going to do a quick version that's just a window that goes from top to bottom on one of these. So I've been working in a reference plane that lines up right through here, and I actually need to change that reference plane to be running parallel to the plane that is created in these columns. So I'm going to go back to Home, Extrusion, and this time I am going to go Set and pick a plane. And with pick a plane, I'm going to use this surface right here, if I can get it to select. And I'm going to turn on Show so we can see that plane. And then I'm also going to turn on Viewer. What Viewer gives me is a square-on view with that plane. I'm actually going to make this window a little bit larger because that's really where I want to draw this in at. And I'm going to start with a rectangle, and I'm just going to go from top to bottom, and then I'm also going to remember that the rectangle tool doesn't work so well because it's aligning with that plane, which is a little out of whack. So I'm going to go back just to the line tool, and let's just go edge to edge. Yeah, that's going to be the best way to work that. And now I'm going to use the offset tool, and let's make a 6-inch thick mullion. Now I'm going to go back and use the trim tool, using the shortcut TR for trim that time. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK on that. And let's look at what we have created right here. You can see that the window frame is actually coming out away from the structure. So what I'm going to do is change the extrusion end to -0.6. And that will push the extrusion back in. And then I also want to make the beginning of that extrusion -0.2. And that should set the window frame inside of the structure. Sort of select that. I'm going to close this work viewing plane. Take a look at that. So I have something like that happening. So obviously for a window it would need more mullions. It would probably, the mullion depth would probably need to be different. But will forgive me for right now on this one. So let's keep working on this though. We want to go ahead and say Finish Model, and I also want to go ahead and add in, I'm going to go back to Edit and Place. I want to add in one more piece, and that is the glass inside of the window frame. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on Show again, make sure that my reference plane is still in line with the structure. I'm going to turn on Viewer, and let's add one more extrusion in. And this time I'm going to use the Pick Lines tool and just select the inside edge of that mullion. Just save me a few steps there in drawing that. And I'm going to go ahead and say we want the extrusion start to be -0. Let's try that one more time. -0.3, and the extrusion end to be -0.3.5. So we have a 1/2 inch thick piece of glass there essentially. I'm going to click OK to that. And now I need to set materials for these two. So on the outside, the window mullions, I'm going to go ahead and select those to the same as the columns, which was metal aluminum. And then to the inside, the glass, we are actually going to set that to glass. Simple enough. Now the last thing that I need to do is copy that between each one. So I'm going to do a left lasso across both of those pieces, copy, multiple, and now I'm just going to move right across the top to put all of those in place. I'm going to close my view window. I'm going to click Finish Model, and I have that part of the design ready to start coming together. If I looked at this from a perspective view, I would get something like that that's ready to go in terms of exploring the overall form using the custom component tools.